everybody, and welcome back to another round of Marmalade. In the booth, as usual, Marco and Ginko.
Hello, everyone.
Today we bring you Prowess versus Murktide, or Murktide versus Prowess.
We're not sure ourselves.
We know that they are here.
Prowess, wow, first time on the channel, if I'm not mistaken.
I do believe
very
so,
explosive deck, very
resilient even for several colors of mana. I do believe this one is completely mono red. Might be Boros.
Might be Boros. Yes. And with Boros, it comes with
great responsibility.
Indeed. But White has some very decent cards for this type of deck, namely being Clever Lumimancer, one of them.
Yes, one of my all-time favorite cards.
Yeah. A great deck, very budget-friendly for anyone who wants to get into Modern. This is perhaps with Affinity the deck to go with. Right, okay, so we indeed see white and red mana for this Prowess, and on the other side we see Murktide opening up with DRC, a very debatable hand lately in Modern. Some people even calling it bad. Either way, it's dead.
It's dead by a gut shot, and the opponent taking 2 damage from a very pretty Swiftspear of the Monastery variety. And this is the appeal of this deck. It has bad removal in terms of gut shot, but it has almost free removal. You don't care about losing 2 life in this deck because the game will last 3 or 4 turns, or you will lose because the opponent will have better cards than you. But the appeal of this deck is that you have all of those cards in the first 2 turns, and you will crush the opponent for upwards of 20 damage in the first 2 turns by the likeness of Monastery Swiftspear, by the likeness of the Clever Lumimancer, and you will get the pesky threats from the first and second turn, as in DRC, as in Ragavan, and so forth, out of the way with gut shot and with other 1 mana and 1 damage ping effects.
Indeed. Turn 2 is usually quite important for this deck, unfortunately. Just 1 damage from Swiftspear and playing, of course, Leonin, Lightscribe. I think that is the name of the card. Now, this is a card that some of the Boros Prowess decks play. That is with Clever Lumimancer, the core of the white mana.
Yeah, so this is the magecraft mechanic. It says that your creatures get a +1/+1 until end of turn for each spell cast or each non-creature spell or instant or sorcery.
I'm not sure. I think it's a non-creature, but I might be mistaken because it's called magecraft and instant and sorceries.
Yeah, I do believe it's instant and sorceries. But the trick is it's not worse Prowess because it has the clause of also copied spells. So something that has Storm, or something that can be replicated, or something else also counts, which is a huge game in these matchups.
Turn 2 Expressive iteration with Darcy on the board. Something that is definitely a great play, but in this situation, I would definitely
advise against it?
Yes, because when a Prowess player plays Leonin, Lightscribe, turn 2, it says, okay, turn 3, you are dead.
Either you are dead or kill all of my creatures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this doesn't bode well for a Murktide player. If that's the best play, it's definitely a weak play.
Yeah, we also see a little bit of struggle with mana colors and lands, probably trying to get the mana beneath him because there is 1 Otavara and 1 Pain land, and now we actually see a fetch land, probably fetching a dual and hopefully casting a removal spell on the Lightscribe, and hopefully not a 2 damage one, because if the opponent has
Mutagenic Growth can really...
or even just another gut shot to both be rid of the DRC if it's not Delirious, but I believe it is, and save the Lightscribe, but no removal, just a blue land from the opponent. This is quite interesting.
Okay, so 13 damage. Prowess player needs to come up with 13 damage. Now this shouldn't be a problem for a Prowess deck turn 3, but we see this player in a deep think, so perhaps his hand is full of token cards. I'm not sure. I don't see a third land, notably.
Yeah, but 13 damage with 2 lands also quite plausible, especially with no blockers. One Manamorphose or something like it breaks this game quite literally wide open. This is, each spell is 2 damage, 2 power on the Swiftspear, and 1 power extra on the Lightscribe, which means each spell is a lightning bolt onto itself, and if you pair it with actual lightning bolts, then it's just game over. Oh, this is an Assault Strobe on the Swiftspear? Probably getting spell pierced? Yes. This is definitely a thing to do, because this will... Oh, Jesus, another one. This will end the game, like, right now. So this and Mutagenic Growth. This is 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The Swiftspear by itself is a 9 power double striker, and the Leonin Lightscribe is another like 1, 2, 3, 4 probably. So this is more than enough.
So one very, very nice magic card that gives double strike to a creature, and of course it costs 1 mana, and of course it triggers Prowess and Leonin Lightscribe. It does all manner of a lot of things, and it was enough. Fortunately, Prowess player had 2 to go through that spell pierce.
Yeah.
It's important to note, even though the first one got countered, it triggered magecraft and Prowess.
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, before we start with game 2, I would like to invite all of you to like, share, and subscribe to our content if you like it. If you don't like it, you can also do that. It doesn't cost anything, and it's a great, 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 great support for us. Thank you very much, and you can also ring the bell notification.
You can ring. No, we will not sing on this channel.
Maybe,
not anymore. Maybe once, but not today. So let's talk about sideboarding. So the Murktide player is definitely very well accustomed to just getting creatures out of the board with the likeness of Lightning Bolt, with the likeness of Unholy Heat, but they have to be extremely careful because, as we said, those pesky zero, quote-unquote, zero mana cards, which trigger both Prowess and Magecraft, can deflect lightning bolts and other burn spells. So if the Murktide Regent player can just have the empty battlefield, doesn't matter if he gets out of the cards. So if he gets just handed, doesn't matter, he will win the game because his top decks are way better than the Jeskai Prowess ones. But on the other hand, Jeskai Prowess, as we've seen in game 1, just goes underneath all of the decks. This is the fastest decks. I believe it is capable of killing on turn 2 quite literally, like 25% of the time.
Yeah, it has a very good kill rate on turn 2 if it plays clever Lumimancer.
Yeah.
You can't do that thing with Monastery Swiftspear. The thing to note is that it's not the easiest thing to sideboard against the Prowess deck, because usually you want to kill its board, and usually you just have all the removal in your main board, especially as a Murktide player.
Yeah.
So I think that the 2 cards that win against Prowess are Chalice and Engineered Explosives.
Oh yeah, definitely.
These two cards are great, and they're so good against this deck that most Prowess players preemptively sideboard things like wear and tear to because if you put down
Chalice on one, the game is over.
Game is just over.
90% of their cards are 1 mana spells.
Exactly.
One other trick that is extremely important to notice and to note when you are playing the Prowess deck is that Shattering Spree has Replicate, and Replicate works against something like a Chalice of the Void, because Chalice of the Void will counter the first effect of the Replicate spell, but it will not counter the copies. And important still, or even more important, is that the copies will trigger magecraft, as we said.
Exactly. And if you are wondering why Chalice doesn't count or doesn't counter the copies, because you don't cast the copies.
Exactly. And the copies are just put on the stack as the effect of the spell. The real spell will be countered because you cast the spell, but it is the same with storm spells as it is with replicate spells. That is a triggered ability from the spell itself, and it will be put on the stack regardless of the Chalice of the Void and resolve through the Chalice.
Okay, we see a mulligan from the Prowess player, but a keep from the Murktide player. So Murktide is on the play, and we'll see if this is a keep from the Prowess player, putting down one card and saying, let's do this.
Yeah.
Turn 1, fetching for 3 life. Not a great thing to do against the Prowess deck. You need to be a bit more conservative on your mana, in my opinion, at least. And,
I would say yes, but on the draw, maybe on the play, pedal to the metal.
Okay.
I am of the school or variety to put your threats down and then deal with the board as a secondary nature, because they are also unlikely to exchange resources with you on the battlefield. So your Ragavan will probably connect if it doesn't get gut-shotted or removed. But if it does, it gets you 1 turn extra to room to breathe. So you need to keep your head above water, and this is probably nice lightning bolt. Yes,
that's a lightning bolt from Mystical Archive, Japanese version.
Yeah,
a very beautiful card and expensive.
And as we've seen now, so the lightning bolt took down Ragavan, which of course it should have done, but this is a turn, a breathing room for the Murktide player, which they definitely need. So this is a fetch, and the Mishra's Bubble being played afterwards?
I'm not sure. I think that's a bit of shortcutting here, but I think that's fine.
Yeah. But my concern is that you want to see what is on top of your deck before you fetch. Maybe it's your sideboard card that you are extremely happy to draw. This is one of the edges that you need to be able to see which of them apply to you, or what are you going towards. So, for example, if your goal is to know information about your opponent's hand or the...
Now definitely. That's definitely a mistake. You should have done this before fetching. I was thinking that perhaps he wants to see the opponent's...
Yeah, exactly. So if he wanted to see the opponent's top deck and have some more information about the content of their hand, because we saw that no play was made on the first turn, no creature was played, which is extremely important for the Prowess deck because it doesn't function without creatures. And if you wanted to see if they lack those creatures, then excellent, great, super, I'm fine with this exchange. But if you wanted to see the top of your deck, you should have played the Mishra's Bubble and cracked it immediately before fetching, so you have some extra wiggle room to see if you want to draw this card on your opponent's turn, or if you want to fetch in response.
And here we have it, clever Lumimancer on the board. The Prowess player played Swiftspear and attacked, baiting out Unholy Heat, and then playing clever Lumimancer. I think that he's a bit, short on cards in hand, but other than that, he looks good because turn 2 from the Murktide player was very weak, just kept land and a misplay with Mishra's Bauble. Of course,
this is a lightning bolt, yeah. So plenty of removal for the small creatures, as we said. This is one of the weakness, and definitely Leonin Lightscribe here, another creature and another removal for it, not boding well for the Prowess player. And we see an expressive iteration, which is a great way to refill your hand and play a threat or play just another cantrip to facilitate your mid to late game. I say mid to late game, it's turn 3, but for this decks, this is definitely the late game, because if it were if we ask the Prowess player, we would have been done with this match already.
Of course. And it's important to note that Prowess decks are usually quite light on creatures.
Yeah.
They usually play around 16 creatures. So when you remove 3 of those creatures, you are in a good spot.
Yeah, but we see another Lightscribe. So this is a 4th creature.
Yeah,
from
that's true.
possibly
That's
16.
But of course, Lightscribe is a great card when you have 2 other creatures on the board.
Yeah.
When it's by itself, it's like very...
It's a worse version of a Prowess creature for 2 mana.
Exactly.
Which is still not bad. It can dish out immense amounts of damage, especially with Assault Strobe and something like Ground Drift that has Storm. But without those cards, it's still just a 2/2 that dies to removal.
Second expressive iteration for the Murktide player. This game is looking good for the Murktide player, even with that Mishra Bauble misplay.
Yeah.
The Prowess player very slow and giving time to Murktide player to just get those cards in his hand and threats on the board. And I'm hoping I will see a Murktide on the board.
I do believe I spotted one.
No.
What? A braid. This is an alternate art, a braid that...
Okay.
will get protected by Apostle's Blessing. That is the name of the card.
Exactly. And
this is also an extremely good card because not only does it protect from color, but also from colorless. And you can also pay 2 life to get the card for a little bit cheaper with Phyrexian mana. You wanted to say something?
That's something else that I wanted to mention when thinking about your sideboard options as Prowess player. You really want to think about some ways of protecting your board. And Apostle Blessing, Blacksmith Skill, all these cards are great because they protect your board, but also trigger Magecraft, trigger Prowess, and give that very important edge to you after game 1.
We see a Murktide Regent coming down probably for the full value, which means it will be a 8/8. I believe. We will see how many instants and sorceries the Murktide player will exile. Maybe consideration for future Delirium is still up, but there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a fully upgraded Murktide Regent, and those things will just end the game in short order. If you can just bait the Murktide player. No, never mind. There is another creature, there is a blocker. I was about to say, if you can bait the Murktide player to just block with the Murktide Regent and then pump your Leonin Lightscribe and potentially, dispose of it, then you are or can be in a good shape, but you are wasting your precious cards as pseudo removal cards. Now there is a Ragavan to block, and I would not be shocked if it just cannon fodder for the Lightscribe, regardless of the number of cards in the opponent's hand.
Yeah, this is the time for Murktide player to play patiently and to really evaluate his moves. With one mana up, he is threatening things like Spell Pierce or perhaps even Lightning Bolt. And Prowess player definitely not in a great situation, but we knew that, so it's and he plays a very interesting card.
Yes, this is my favorite card of whole of the modern spells. This is Nivmagus Elemental, which is basically almost like Clever Lumimancer, but it has the clause that it can eat your spells from the stack, instants and sorceries, and for each spell you gobbled up, you can put 2+1/+1 counters on it, which includes also storm copies or any other copies of the spell on the stack, which says that when you play your ground rift and probably target your opponent's creature for 1 and you have a storm of 5, you can just gobble up 4 of those storm copies and end up with a massive threat.
So usually Prowess decks play either Nivmagus or Lumimancer. You rarely see both of these cards in a Prowess deck simply because it's a very tight deck. You really need those spells, and you really can't put more than 16 creatures. So I'm quite interested to see this deck list.
Sorry to interrupt. There was some confusion on what happened. There is a subtlety being played on the Nivmagus Elemental. This is why we see it go on the bottom of its owner's library. And I believe this will be the game because there is another Murktide Regent which will grow the first one, and for 3... No, it's still not enough. Probably the Prowess player will have one turn to breathe, but there are 2 blockers, one of them another Murktide Regent and Ragavan, and I do believe that there is still outs, like several Manamorphoses into something like a bounce spell or a protection spell from blue, and 13 points of damage is not impossible.
It's not.
Yes, but also one thing to note is that the Prowess deck does not mulligan well.
No.
This is as opposite to critical mass deck, as something like the Affinity. This is a critical spells deck where you have to have several of them in your hand at all times, and you just want to spew them out in one turn and have like 2 or 3 creatures that are extremely impactful with every spell that you cast.
And in the face of 2 Murktides, the Prowess player scoops it up and says, yeah, I think I have better chances when I play first. And that's another thing about Prowess decks. It's very important for them to play first.
Yeah.
So that first dice roll before the game even starts is quite important for it.
We see a ripped sleeve probably on the Ragavan, so a little bit of exchange. But question, do you think anything changes in the sideboarding plans with those decks, play versus draw?
Well, yes.
Save for the fact that the Prowess deck will probably spew out all of their creatures by
exactly. The Prowess deck, in this case, if it sided game to some wear and tears, can put them out if they didn't see Chalice or Engineered Explosives.
Yeah.
Or maybe even if they saw it, they can put it out just for that very small edge they can get in their turn 2 lethal possibility.
Yeah, so they want to have as much one costing spells as possible, possibly also some with either flashback or rebound or something like it, so they get extra oomph, extra value from all of them. And here we see a little bit of extra sideboarding from them, probably returning some cards in the main deck and swapping them out for the sideboarded in sideboard cards. We'll see if we can spot what they will bring out, maybe, as I do think they have put in several Sanctifier and Vex inside, and debating probably whether it is prudent to have them in game 3.
Yeah, Sanctifier and Vex against Murktide is not the most effective cards. I cited it in more than once when I play with Hammer Time against it, but I'm never happy with it. I'm never super pleased.
It's extremely average.
It's extremely average, and it can be very bad, especially if it comes in after
the Murktide
Regent.
Oh,
yeah, so
then it's extremely bad.
So things like Rest in Peace might be better for some decks, but in this deck, Rest in Peace is just not a good card.
No, Rest in Peace is not a creature.
Yeah, it's not attack. A creature, it's not sorcery or instant.
Yeah. So does not turn on magecraft. It turns prowess, but there is also only one prowess creature in the deck, and it is the worst one. And this is extremely strange to say, but the Monastery Swiftspear is the worst and the slowest of the creatures in the prowess list.
Yeah. Okay, so we see a mulligan from the Murktide player. Was it a mulligan?
I do think it was, and I would mulligan in their spot extremely aggressive to a hand that has, like, as we see here, several lightning bolts and several removal spells.
Yeah.
Definitely want those creatures out of the play,
I'm hoping that mulligan is because of no lands, because I saw 2 Unholy Heats, and I would say I'm keeping this.
I'm snap keeping this hand if it has 1 land or more.
Exactly.
Because you don't, as we said, you don't care whether you have threats, whether you will get empty-handed, because once you clear the board, you are good. They will not draw any extra cards. They will not have any pressure on you, and you will have several turns of breathing room just by the sheer number of, or the lack of, creatures they can present. And here we see probably mulligan. What is this, down to 5 or 4? This is 4 and probably 5.
Down to 5.
2 cards on the bottom. This is still winnable for the Murktide Regent player, because they, as we said, they only need several removal spells.
That is true. A decent start from the Prowess player. Monastery Swiftspear turn 1. Of course, turn 1 clever Lumimancer is an amazing play, but this is definitely a decent second.
This is also something, this is an extremely good start from the Murktide Regent player due to the mulligan. But this Ragavan might either not be long for this world, or it might also be just a glorified blocker at this point. And this is, believe it or not, the mid-game of this matchup. Turn 2 is the mid-game.
The turn 2 mid-game. Okay, so again, we saw some misplays with Mishra Bobble, but this time the opponent looked at the Prowess players.
No, I wouldn't say these were the misplays, because if you wanted to put the Ragavan down, you would want to do so regardless of whether you had something on top of your deck and you wanted to fetch for the card. So this might be deliberate, and here we see the Prowess player helping with the life totals.
Okay, so we saw turn 2 mana miss from both players, and now the second land is dropped by the Murktide player. It's a Steam Lens.
I do think this is the Murktide player's second turn.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
So there is a land miss on the Prowess side only.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Ragavan better stay blocking, because it might not do much else.
No.
And this is actually a nice trick. The Mishra's Bubble reveal the opponent's deck, and you can just see if you want the card on top or not. For example, if this on top, if the Prowess player does not block and the top of the deck was some removal spells.
Or a land, perhaps.
Yeah,
Like
but
this
you can also just exile the land. But Nivmagus Elemental was on blocking duty, and they trade. I do believe that there was a Mishra's Bubble trigger.
Perhaps.
Oh, perhaps this was... No, wait. Yeah, I do believe that the Mishra's Bubble trigger was missed from the Murktide Regent side. And indeed, it was a land on top for the Prowess player and Leonin Lightscribe coming down. This is the wombo combo that we have seen in game 1, which can dash out extreme amounts of damage, especially when we know that the Prowess player's hand is full of spells, because they have not been playing lands.
I must say that perhaps this Prowess player is playing Nivmagus instead of none other than Manamorphose, because I haven't seen any Manamorphoses.
I do believe I just spotted one in their hand.
Oh, right. Okay. Then I'm mistaken. Let's see. This DRC blocks Leonin Lightscribe. Even with Delirium, they will just trade, but there's no Delirium. So this is...
Just 2 damage. Yeah, probably just 2 damage. I mean, with three creatures on the board, the Prowess player is not in a hurry anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
They probably have a protection spell with this 1 mana open. Or
they just opted not to play it, of course.
And of course, the next turn will be exponential amounts of damage, as each progressive turn is with the Prowess deck. But we will see if the Murktide player has anything to say about or against that. 1 mana being tapped for a big ponder. Not the card ponder, because it is not legal in Modern, but thinking.
Okay,
this is a lightning bolt, and I actually like this play in the main phase, because if you want to save your Leonin Lightscribe or any other creature, then you need to get those pump spells or protection spells on the opponent's turn, which means less damage on their own turn.
It's true, but it's a very, very bittersweet truth.
I mean, it's the same. It's the same as with Infect. You want to fight on your own terms and not on your opponent's terms. And
this is a very weak Murktide being played. Yes, a blocker. A glorified blocker.
Maybe, yes. We will see if it survives even. So, Murktide coming down, it is only 1 counter on it, so a 4/4 flyer, still good for 2 mana. 4/4 flyer is nothing to scoff at, but on the other side we have 3 Prowess creatures. 1 is magecraft, which is even better because it is a glorious anthem for all of your creatures, and now we see the Manamorphose, which works wonders. So this is +2 on each of the Swiftspears and +1 on the Lightscribe. Probably some combination of red and white has been named, and this is another land for the opponent. So this is
a lightning
bolt. 3 damage here, +2 on the Swiftspears again, and
that's a lava dart.
And this is a flashback.
This is a flashback. Flashback lava dart with more than enough damage on the board.
And this is just a rub in. This is 5 storms, so this is +5/+5 only from the ground drift, targeting whichever of your creatures. They are not blocking, they are just attacking. And the 4 other creatures, so this is +8, +5. So this was +8 in on each of the Swiftspears, and +9 on the Lightscribe.
Yeah, that's the power of the Prowess decks. For anyone interested in modern format, this deck can win some games and win them in style.
Yes.
So, I definitely recommend playing this deck if you want that explosiveness for a bit of money, not very expensive. I think this Prowess player had a very expensive Prowess deck because he had a lot of special cards.
Oh yeah. But if you want just the basics, this deck is about as cheap as modern decks go. Maybe in the rank of Affinity, in the rank of Merfolk? Maybe?
No, even cheaper.
Even cheaper, yes.
There is really no expensive cards in this deck.
So thank you everybody for watching this and our other videos. This is all for this game and match. We will talk to you soon. Stay tuned.
Bye. Like, share, and subscribe.
Ti moraš imati idealno ili nikad. Da, mislim možeš ti turn 2 ubiti. Turn 2 već.